Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us for today's webinar, OpenJDK Migration, What Happens If I Don't Migrate? So this is the first webinar of the three-part webinar series on OpenJDK Migration for Dummies. My name is Gerrit, and I will be your host today. But before we begin, I have a few housekeeping items with you to share. So on your screen, you will see a Q&A chat window, and please add your questions, and we will answer them at the end of the session. At least we will try to answer them all. We are recording today's webinar as always, and we will send to you the link of the recording afterwards so that you can enjoy it again if you like. And we have a short survey at the end of the webinar. It will pop up when you leave the webinar. Please fill it out so we can make sure we are continuing to bring you great content in the future. The last thing that I have to say is, as an appreciation for attending today, you will get a virtual copy of the OpenJDK Migration for Dummies guide in your follow-up email. So now let's get started. So today we are talking about what will happen if I don't migrate. So what are the issues that I can expect? So my colleague and friend Simon Ritter recently published a book named OpenJDK Migration Guide for Dummies. And I've read the book, and it contains really good information about things like, for example, migration to OpenJDK, why the technology compatibility kit, or shortly TCK, is important at all. Finding the right OpenJDK distribution, or benefits of commercial support, and also Java SE subscription and the related cost. So congratulations, Simon, to this really useful book. I was surprised how much really good information is in there. And I already mentioned it, Simon Ritter is our guest speaker today. So welcome, and could you introduce yourself, Simon?
Yes, indeed. Yes. So I have to say, Gerrit, it is great to be here with you because we have obviously been working together for quite a long time now. As you said, my name is Simon Ritter. I work at Azul. I'm the deputy CTO, and I've taken a lot of the experience that I've learned over, well, some of it over the last 25 years, actually, in terms of working on Java. But more recently, I've been involved in things like the JCP Executive Committee. I'm on the Java SE expert group. I'm on the OpenJDK vulnerability group. I've taken some of that experience of understanding how things work in terms of not just the technical aspects of Java, but the licensing aspects and how people deploy it and how people migrate to OpenJDK. I've combined that with a lot of information that I've got from the people who also work at Azul. We have a number of sort of sales engineers who work with customers who are making this migration, this switch, and they've learned a lot in terms of practical experience. So we've tried to sort of distill that information from them, from what we've done here at Azul, into this book to help people understand how to make this switch. So that's really where we're coming from with this book.
That's really a good introduction, and it shows how much knowledge is bundled not only in your person but also at Azul. And yeah, I read the book, and I have some questions I would like to ask you, because I got it from the book, but still this is something I could imagine people are interested in. So for example, how do I know if I apply it to the new employee-based cost calculation in the Java SE subscription? Because Oracle changed things like they like to do it in January again. And now somehow people told me, oh, now you have to pay for all the people in your company. But how do I know if I apply to this new calculation?
Yes, so this is where it becomes complicated because as you say, Oracle have made certain changes over the last few years, and you can go back really to sort of like 2018, 2019, which is when they introduced this idea of a Java SE subscription. And that was at the time of JDK11. That was the long-term support release that they introduced at that time. And that had the Oracle Technology Network License Agreement as its license. And what that said was that rather than in the past, where in the days of Sun and even when Oracle first acquired Sun, we've been very used to being able to take the JDK from Oracle, download it and use it however we wanted to in terms of deploying applications, whether it was desktops, laptops, or on servers in the cloud, didn't really matter. The only time that you needed to consider a different license in that situation was for embedded devices or single purpose things like a ticket kiosk. So people have been very used to this idea that we just download Java and we can use it for running commercial applications. This new license actually said, okay, well, now you only have 4 places where you can use it for free. And the first of those is if you're running personal applications, like if you're playing Minecraft. So, that's a great, thing that they can still play Minecraft. And then if you're doing development, testing, and so on, Oracle approved applications and Oracle cloud infrastructure. So when it comes to understanding whether the new costing applies to you, that depends on what version of Java you're using. Java 11 requires this license. JDK8 has a sort of dual nature to it. So earlier updates of JDK8 were under the old license. Newer ones are under this newer license. And JDK17 is a little bit different as well. But what Oracle did in January this year was that they didn't change the license. And that's a really important thing to get across, is they didn't change the license. So the places where you can use the Oracle JDK for free are still the same. But what they did do was they changed the way that they calculate the cost of the Java SE subscription, which is what you require if you're not using Oracle JDK in one of those particular situations. So the new licensing, the new costing that they introduced is based purely on the number of people employed by your company. And that's the full-time employees, part-time employees, contractors, and even employees of a company that you outsource your IT to. If they are doing something with Java, then you have to include those in that cost. So essentially, if you are exposed to that new cost, it comes down to, are you renewing your license? Are you taking out a new subscription with Oracle? There are some situations where Oracle say, well, if you haven't changed anything in terms of your usage, then you can renew under the old terms. But if you have changed anything, then you would need to calculate the cost based purely on the number of people that you employed by. So realistically, the simple answer to that question is it depends on when you renew your license and your subscription with Oracle for the use of the Oracle JDK, as to whether they decide that you've changed things, and then you would need to negotiate with them on that.
Okay, so first of all, that means it could be really expensive if I suddenly have to pay for...
It could be, yes, because of course, if you're calculating based on the number of employees, a lot of companies may have a situation where, let's say you're a supermarket, you have lots of people who work in supermarkets. They have nothing to do with the use of the Java in the back end and the web server type of thing, but you still have to include them in the cost of the subscription. Yeah, so it could be a lot more expensive.
That's interesting. But now let's assume I have a subscription from last year, so before January. So, and I just don't use anything more than I used last year. So then I'm not applying to the new license. So I don't use any more vCores or something, just same amount. I could go on with this and they will renew it with the same subscription cost as last year, or can that change in the future too?
Well, my understanding of that is, and from talking to people who've been through this process, is that if you can show Oracle that you haven't changed any of your usage, then they will allow you to renew under the existing terms of the subscription. So you would still pay based on the number of vCores or the number of named user plus desktops that you have.
Which might be hard, right? I mean, if I have to prove it, then it's...
Yes, and also it's quite hard because normally a subscription is, for like 3 years. And if you're any sort of size of company, are you really going to be in a position to say, we haven't changed any of our IT in the last 3 years? Probably not going to be quite the case. So I think it would be quite difficult to be able to renew in that particular situation. Okay. So yeah.
And that also means when, let's say, one of my developers just downloaded the JDK from the Oracle website and say, yeah, okay, I agree to this stuff, and then install it, I need it, and then I would apply for the new employee-based cost calculation, right?
Exactly, yes. So that's where you do need to be careful, is that if you have employees who are doing, like you said, development work or even working in like DevOps and sysadmin, you need to be very careful that if they are downloading the Oracle JDK, that they understand that if they're downloading it under the Oracle Technology Network License Agreement license, that they are fully aware of how that might impact on the situation when it comes to the Java SE subscription.
Oh, that could be tricky, I can imagine. Because especially developers, when they, I need that for a project, I just download, install it, and suddenly you apply for new costs. Okay.
Yes, which is really where, you know, the whole idea of using a different OpenJDK distribution comes in. I mean, this is what we've seen over the last sort of 5 years. There has been a proliferation of OpenJDK distributions. So there are many more to choose from, rather than having to use the Oracle one as the only one that's really available.
Yeah, and I found it quite interesting in the book that you describe not only what we offer, but also what is available, what are the differences, and how to choose the right one, right? For example, you go into details with the TCK, why it makes sense, and what does it mean, which is, it's really useful. And also JDK 17 you mentioned already.
Mm-hmm.
This comes with a new license, right?
Yes.
Again, which is strange, because what if I just use this one because it says, oh, you can use it for free, right?
Yes. So as you say, so this is where things get complicated with licensing of the Oracle JDK. So you had the binary code license, which was the one that they inherited from Sun, which gave you free use of it in pretty much any situation other than embedded. Then you got the Oracle Technology Network License Agreement, which restricts you to only development, testing, personal use, Oracle approved applications, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. Then you've got the no fee terms and conditions license, which is what JDK 17 currently uses. I have to be very careful and say that the Oracle JDK currently uses. What that does is it extends the places where you can use it without the Java SE subscription. The license is actually very short, and it basically says that if you're using it for internal business applications, then you don't need a Java SE subscription for that. But two things about that. One is, the definition of an internal business application isn't really given. So does that mean that if you're running a web server that's accessible to customers outside of your firewall, does that still count as an internal business application, or does it not? And then the second thing that you do need to be aware of is that the way that they've structured this is that the no fee terms and conditions license is only applied until 1 year after the next long-term support release comes out. Oh. So JDK 17 is the current long-term support release. And as of next month, September, we will have JDK 21, which is also going to be a long-term support release. So that means that the clock starts ticking from next month, and you have 1 year until JDK 17 from Oracle will then revert back to the Oracle Technology Network License Agreement, which means that you won't be able to use it without a Java SE subscription if you're using it for internal business applications at the moment. So it goes back to the other license.
Oh, so that means if I use JDK 17 from Oracle right now, and I just use it in production because it's free, then next year, you say in October, suddenly I would apply for the employee-based cost calculation?
Exactly. Yes, that's correct. Yes. Oh. So you would have to then buy a Java SE subscription, and because it would be a new one, you would definitely be under the new pricing model, which would mean you would have to count all of the employees that you have. So yes, the idea is that they want you to move to the newer long-term support release. So you would want to be migrating to JDK 21 ideally, but obviously that's something that you need to look at in terms of how much effort is involved and testing.
Both know that usually this is not the case, right? I know a lot of companies still sticking to 11, if at all, some at 8 still.
And some at 7, some at 6.
Yeah, exactly. And we offer support for that.
That's correct, yes, because we do.
It's really, it's interesting that they try to force you to the new JDK, because for companies, and if they get bigger, it gets harder and harder to just do simply use the latest and greatest, right? Usually big companies don't do that.
Yes, I mean,
so that means they could be in risk pretty soon to apply to new costs.
Yes, so you do need to consider that if you're using JDK 17 from Oracle at the moment, you have 1 year until you will need to decide, are you moving to a new version, or are you going to take out a Java SE subscription, or are you going to stop using updates? Because that would be your third option.
Okay, so that means you say I could just stick to but I use 17 and I don't use any updates, but I still would apply next year for the old OTN license from Oracle in October.
Yes, so you would need to then buy a Java SE subscription if you wanted to use the. Okay. So you can use up to whatever the update number is that will come out in July next year, but the following one will then be under a different license.
Okay, and that also applies for JDK8.
Yes, so JDK8 is this one where it's a sort of has a dual personality,
Yeah,
if you
because it
like.
came for free in the beginning, right? So, and then it changed over time. I think 8U202 something was the latest that was
That
available for free.
that's correct. Yes. So January 2019 was update 202, as you rightly said, and that was the last update from Oracle for JDK8 under the binary code license.
So I could
The
stick to this one and then I'm fine.
You are fine from a licensing point of view, but I wouldn't recommend it because if you actually look at April 2019, the very next update to update 211, obviously each update includes a number of security patches that address vulnerabilities that have been identified and then fixed during that quarter. And what you'll find is that even though even though Java has been around for nearly 30 years, we have not eliminated all of the potential security vulnerabilities from that. Now, that's not to say that Java is a language or a platform which is particularly insecure. It's just that, with 7.5 million lines of code, it's almost impossible to eliminate every potential security vulnerability from it. So what you find is that there are still vulnerabilities that are being identified, and ones even that are not as actually part of the Java platform itself, but part of the build environment. So again, let's take April 2019 as the example. In that update, there was a 10.0 vulnerability that was identified. And so that's a critical vulnerability. And that wasn't even in the Java platform. It was actually a Windows DLL that was used to build the Java runtime, and that had a vulnerability in it. So if you haven't updated from 202, you are exposed to at least one critical vulnerability. You're also exposed to a number of high vulnerabilities, and then you've got medium and low as well. But
So
it
that
is
means you say I'm safe from the license point of view, but I open the doors for all kinds of vulnerabilities if I stick to the old version and don't do the updates.
Exactly, yes. And that is one of the things that really is very important to kind of get across, because some people um, do look at Java and they go, oh, yes, we haven't updated for a while, we're okay. It is very important if you are running mission critical, if you're running enterprise software, that you keep your systems up to date with the latest security patches, because as I say, vulnerabilities are still being identified, and you do not want to fall into a situation where you have an exposed system and suddenly people are able to exploit that. Now, again, just to sort of bang on at that point, some people also say to me, well, it's okay, our software is running behind a firewall. That isn't necessarily going to keep you completely safe, because there are many situations where we've seen where systems have been compromised and people get through the firewall, they get remote code execution access, and then they're able to jump through the firewall and gain access to other systems. And when they find that there are vulnerabilities that haven't been addressed, then they can exploit those and move through the rest of the system. So, as I say, very, very important. If you want your systems to be secure, keep up to date with all the latest patches, certainly for anything that's sort of critical or high.
So that means what kind of updates can I get? Because I heard there are different ones, right? There's this thing called PSU and CPU, and I think only Oracle offers this ones, right? So what is the thing there?
That's correct. Yeah. So Oracle, for all their software, they offer two different versions of each update. So one's called the CPU, or critical patch update, and the other's called the PSU, or patch set update. And the idea of that is that the CPU only contains the security related changes, so security patches, and the PSU contains security patches plus bug fixes plus any enhancements, any other source code changes. Now, if you look at the size of those, a typical CPU, we're going to see anything from maybe one or two CVEs that are addressed in a good quarter, all the way up to a bad quarter might be like a dozen, maybe 15 CVEs that are being addressed. So you're going to have a small number of changes involved in that particular update. The full update, the PSU, because it has everything else, that's going to be a lot bigger. So you could have 2, 3, even 400 changes versus up to 10 changes in the CPU. Now, the impact of that from a deployment point of view is that what we see sometimes is that because bugs are fixed, they're reported in various aspects of Java and they get fixed by Oracle and the rest of the OpenJDK contributors, what we see is that it's not possible to test all software in the space of a quarter. So bug fixes get entered and then they get released. And sometimes those bug fixes can have an impact on stability of applications. Take an example of a couple of years ago, the July 2020 update contained a bug fix, but that actually meant that things like Hadoop Cluster, Solr, and Lucene wouldn't actually start because the fix impacted on the ability of those applications to run. So that meant that if you wanted to deploy the July 2020 update, you had to wait until that bug fix had been fixed again. We'd had a respin of the update. If you had access to the CPU, the critical patch update, that didn't contain the change that broke things. So you could still deploy all of the security patches, have your system secure, and then sit and wait for the rest of it to be resolved. As you say, Oracle do that. And in the case of Azure, we also provide both the CPU and the PSU for each update. And it is one thing that's also worth just mentioning there. Some distributions get a little bit confused about this, and they call their update a CPU, even though it's actually a PSU. So they like the term CPU, but it's actually the PSU. It's the full update.
I also read stuff like based on the CPU, which is not a lie, but it's PSU.
Includes the CPU.
Yeah. So then one thing that came to my mind, I saw that I can also use Oracle OpenJDK, which is available for free, right? But
yes.
Is that what's the difference? And I think there are not as many updates as I would like to see, right?
Yes, that's correct. So we have the Oracle JDK, and then we have the Oracle OpenJDK JDK, and we have to say it that way. That is the way that it is technically supposed to be said. So we have the Oracle OpenJDK JDK. What that is a build of OpenJDK, and it's released under the same license as the OpenJDK source code. That means it's GPL v2 with the class path exception. So it is free to use wherever you want to. There is no restrictions on embedded. There's no restrictions on cloud or whatever. So you can download that. You can use it for free. So in essence, it's identical to any other OpenJDK distribution that's been built from the same source code. So other distributions. But that is only provided as a way for people to test the current version, which means that right now, the Oracle OpenJDK JDK is is version 20, JDK 20, and next month it will change to being JDK 21. So the JDK 20 builds will disappear. So you only have 6 months, which means only 2 updates are made available for that. So it's not something that has any concept of long-term support. None of the builds of that will come with more than 6 months of updates, because you'll always change the next version as it's released.
So it's again, they force you to switch to the next one to keep up. Okay, that was really interesting, and I think it's thanks. First of all, thank you for this very informative conversation that we have, and now we have time for some questions. Yes.
There's a question in the chat which I think is relevant.
Yes, there is questions, and let me check them first. The question is, Oracle also has an OpenJDK besides their commercial JDK. Does this Oracle OpenJDK costs money or not? Is free or not? What are the differences between Oracle OpenJDK JDK and other OpenJDKs? What are the differences between Oracle OpenJDK JDK and Oracle commercial JDK? I have heard that some applications don't work with Oracle OpenJDK JDK and require the normal JDK. Oh, that's a lot of questions.
That's a lot of questions.
Some of them we answered already. So like you said, the Oracle OpenJDK JDK is just a free build of the OpenJDK code base and is available for free, and you can use it without any cost. And it should be function-wise the same as the Oracle JDK, as far as I understand it.
Yes. So to kind of like give the kind of technical answer to that, if you like. So the the Oracle OpenJDK JDK is built purely from the source code that's available in the OpenJDK repository. Now, that will differ very, very slightly to what you get from the Oracle JDK, because the Oracle JDK, I believe they use some different implementations of certain things around weird things like color management and font rendering. There's a few differences there that they use for when they build theirs. But from a functional point of view, they are identical because they both pass the TCK, so the Technology Compatibility Kit, and that's what we use to verify that a build of a JDK distribution matches the Java SE specification. So they are identical from a functional point of view. They will deliver exactly the same way of executing bytecodes, whether you're using the Oracle commercial JDK or the free OpenJDK build that they have. So there's no difference from a functional point of view. The main difference is, as we've already explained, is the licensing, which means that there is a cost associated with using the Oracle commercial JDK if you're not using it on the Oracle Cloud or on Oracle approved applications or playing Minecraft. So I'm not sure to answer the last part of that question. Some applications don't work with Oracle OpenJDK, but require the normal, in quotes, JDK. I haven't seen anything there of any applications I know of.
In the past.
Okay.
I heard that too in older OpenJDK versions, but that was because of missing fonts and,
okay,
and
yeah,
stuff like applets when they have been out of the JDK. That was tricky in the past.
Yes, so that would be down to like pre-JDK 11, because JDK 11 is when the applet browser plugin, Java Web Start, and JavaFX will drop from the Oracle JDK because they're not part of OpenJDK, although JavaFX is a separate project, but browser plugin and Java Web Start have not been included in open source. So they would drop from Oracle JDK 11 and later. So the current ones don't have that.
Mm-hmm. I think that covered most of it.
Yes, hopefully, yes.
Let's see, we have more. What if I would like to distribute my app using JDK 17 from Oracle? Do I need to pay for it? Distribute, okay?
Again, so what I would say with that, I am not a lawyer. So I believe if you want to distribute it, then you need to consult with Oracle to figure out what the licensing of that would involve. So yeah, I think that's probably the safest answer, is you would need to consult with Oracle about how they would want to deal with that.
Yeah. Then I have another question here, which is, if Oracle JDK and Oracle OpenJDK JDK are functionally same, what is the advantage of using Oracle JDK, which is not free?
So the advantage of that is that you have extended updates. So they do have long-term support, which means that if you're using JDK 11 or JDK 17, then you can continue to use those beyond 6 months. So that really is the benefit of having the commercial side of things. It's the benefit of commercial support is having that extended maintenance available for those versions. So the key difference to answer that question is that the Oracle OpenJDK builds don't come with long-term support, so you only get 6 months of updates. If you're using Oracle JDK8, 11, 17, they're the long-term support versions, so they continue to provide updates for an extended period of time.
Do Oracle provide CPU updates for the free one?
They do not. So, do they? Hang on. I'm not sure.
So.
Not for the OpenJDK JDK, but for the commercial one they do. But for the free one they don't. No, it's only the PSU.
Okay, I think we have time for one last question I have here. I use JDK 11.0. Will I be at any risk?
So again, if it's not the latest update, then yes, you are exposed to a risk because there will be a certain number of vulnerabilities that have been identified. They have been resolved, fixed, and they have been published. So in the update, so JDK 11, where are we now? So JDK 17, 20. So that's sort of 4 years worth of updates. Yeah. So yes, there would be quite a few CVEs that have been addressed. So if you're using the 11.0.0, the very first release of that, yes, there would be a number of vulnerabilities you'd be exposed to.
Okay, so that's it. We are running out of time. So thank you, Simon, again for your time and for all the answers. And thanks everyone for joining the webinar today. We have 2 more sessions coming up on September 13 and 27, and you see here the QR code where you can sign up for them, and where we will talk about tools and techniques and customer success stories. And we will hope you will join us. So thanks again for your time, and see you soon.